Trial resumed. Jury not present. 10:02 a.m.
The court said, "Good morning. Please make your appearances."
Mr. Finkel said, "Ryan Finkel, Justin Horton, and Juliana Murray will be here shortly for the government. We're joined by Michael Gartland, who is a paralegal in our office."
Mr. Kamraju said, "Good morning, Your Honor. Siddhartha Kamraju, Sabrina Shroff, Scott Skirick and Matthew Barkin on behalf of Mr. Gua, who is with us at counsel's table."
The court said, "Please be seated. We received a note from the jury this morning. Says we the jury. Limiting instructions. We are looking for judge's instruction regarding exhibits. Hard copy of GTV PPM document. GXBK5 record transcripts. And then there's a word I cannot say if it says when or where or were. Looking for complete transcripts so we can tie exhibits number to testimony. So I understand that we do have 12 hard copies of the PPM that we can send back to the jurors. With regard to the transcript of the trial, it's over 6,000 pages. And so I propose that we ask if they're looking for a particular witness's testimony. With regard to my instructions regarding my limiting instructions regarding exhibits. So there is a mention in the jury charge at page 5 and number 3 generally about limiting instructions. Then, of course, there are all limiting instructions that were given, and my clerks have identified a number of them. So I'd like the parties' input on how you recommend that we address these issues."
Mr. Kamraju said, "Sorry, Your Honor. We were trying to figure out if the request for the court transcripts was also tied to the limiting instruction note. Whether there was some connection between those two. I think from the defense side, it makes sense to ask for some clarification with respect to whether they want particular witnesses or they're focused on particular parts of the transcript. On the limiting instruction, I think it would make sense to ask for further clarification with respect to that as well. Whether they're just looking for the general limiting instruction that Your Honor propose, or whether they're looking for a limiting instruction that's tied to specific exhibits. Because as Your Honor noted, there are a number of limiting instructions that cover different topics. Many of them may not be responsive to what they're focused on in the moment. I think we would propose sending back a clarifying note to try to suss that out."
Mr. Finkel said, "Your Honor, the government largely agrees with that. We think it would be helpful, as the court suggested, to understanding whether there are particular pieces of the court transcript which they're most interested in. Whether it's tied to particular exhibits or tied to particular witnesses. As the court noted, given its volume, although the government has been redacting objected and struck testimony, it will take some time. Some more time to prepare the entirety of that transcript. Some of it is ready to go. With respect to the limiting instruction, I agree with defense counsel. I think it would be helpful to understand exactly obtain more information, so we could provide them a precise response. And lastly, I would just note for the record, Your Honor, the note requested the PPM as GXBK5, B, as in boy. It's GXVK5, V, as in Victor. That's what we provided. I gave defense counsel an opportunity to review it. We provided it to your law clerks."
The court said, "You're saying where they put letter B for Bumblebee? It should be V for victory?"
Mr. Finkel said, "Yes. They clearly remember it as B. B and V sound similar, but just for the record. We provided V as in Victor, K5, which is the PPM."
The court said, "Please have the jurors come out."
Ms. Shrofa said, "Your Honor, just one last thing. It seems from my regarding where it says court transcript. I think they're trying to say we were, meaning last week. Maybe they misspelled were. Instead of WRE, they spelled it as WTRE. I think they're trying to explain what happened last week. That's what I understand. So maybe they're looking for transcripts so that they can tie it to the exhibits that they're reviewing. That might be a point to clarify with them."
Mr. Finkel said, "I agree with that. And would note it's also possible they're looking for the complete binder of the 400 series. It's a little unclear. But I agree with defense counsel. The government agrees that we should ask for clarification.
The court said, okay.
Ms. Strofa said, Your Honor, we could also split up the redaction. The government could take the first half of the trial. We could work backward and do it that way if that's ultimately what they want.
Continued on next page.
The law clerk said, Jury entering.
Jury present.
The court said, Please be seated. Good morning, jurors. I have a note from you. Says we the jury. Re-limiting instructions. We are looking for judge's instruction regarding exhibits. Hard copy of GTV PPM document. JEXPIGA 5. Court transcripts. We were looking for complete transcripts so we can tie exhibit numbers to testimony. So starting with the hard copy of the PPM. That exhibit is actually GXV like Victory K5. You have B as in Bumblebee, and I'm assuming that you mean the V as in Victory version. You can tell me if I'm incorrect in another note. With regard to court transcripts, the transcript of this trial is over 6,000 pages. So my question is, are you thinking of particular exhibits that you'd like to see testimony with regard to particular exhibits? Are you saying that you want the testimony of particular witnesses? And if that is the case that you want a particular witness's testimony, you could say we want the direct examination, or we want both direct and cross-examination, or just one or the other. With regard to the limiting instructions, I need clarification. I made a general statement about limiting instructions, and then there were sprinkled throughout the trial a number of limiting instructions related to different matters, different witnesses. Are you looking? Well, the question is, what are you looking for? So I'm going to send you back so that can you send us another note with regard to all three items? The hard copy of the PPM, the transcripts, as well as the limiting instructions.
The law clerk said, Jury exiting.
Jury not present.
The court said, I'll let you know when I get a note.
Jury resumes deliberations at 10:16 a.m. Recess pending verdict. In open court. Jury not present. For 11 p.m.
The court said, Please be seated. I just wanted to make clear that the note from this morning is court exhibit number 6. I received another note at 1:46 p.m. today. It states we, the jury, transcript of testimony of Steele Schottenheimer, both direct and cross. Transcript of testimony Wei Chan, both direct and cross. It's signed by the foreperson and dated today's date. I'm making this court exhibit number 7. I understand that the parties have agreed on the transcript that should go into the jury. Is that correct?
Mr. Finkel said, Yes, Your Honor.
The court said, Would you have the jurors brought in, please?
Continued on next page.
The law clerk said, Jury entering.
In open court. Jury present.
The court said, Please be seated. Members of the jury, I have your note from 1:46 p.m. States we, the jury. Transcript testimony of Steele Schottenheimer, both direct and cross. Transcript of testimony Wei Chan, both direct and cross. The note was signed by the foreperson and dated today's date. I've made it court exhibit number 7. Members of the jury, the transcripts have now been prepared and will be sent in to you. They may retire to the jury room.
The law clerk said, Jury exiting.
Jury not present.
The court said, Please be seated. Would the parties want to raise anything?
Mr. Kumraju said, Not from the defense, Your Honor.
Mr. Finkel said, Not from the government. In terms of scheduling, should we return to the courtroom at 5?
The court said, So I think that you should return to the courtroom a few minutes before 5.
Mr. Kumraju said, Thank you, Your Honor.
Jury resumes deliberations at 4:16 p.m. Recess pending verdict. In open court. Jury not present. 5:08 p.m.
The court said, Please have the jurors brought in.
The law clerk said, Jury entering.
Jury present.
The court said, Please be seated. Members of the jury, it's 5:11 and your work has come to an end for the day. I'm sorry for bringing you out late. There was a delay that arose in connection with something that was out of my control and out of the control of the parties. So remember that the old rules now apply while you're separated during the evening. You're not allowed to discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. You're not permitted to allow others to discuss the case in your presence, and you're not permitted to read, Watch or listen to anything from any source that touches upon the subject matter of this trial. Have a good evening.
The law clerk said, jury exiting.
Jury not present.
The court said, please be seated. Is there anything from the parties?
Mr. Kamraju said, not from the defense.
Mr. Finkel said, not from the government. In terms of tomorrow morning, same as this morning? We could just essentially wait until the court requires us to be in the trial room, the courtroom?
The court said, yes, and my sense is that the night is young.
Mr. Finkel said, understood.
Adjourned to July 16, 2024. Pending verdict.